Hey there, all you creepers and reapers. Welcome to another episode of the Femme Fatalities. I'm your co-hostess, Anna, and I'm here with...
Hey, Grieflings and Frightlings, it's Margaret and Anna. What are we talking about today?
I want to play another game, Margaret. That's right, we're continuing our Sawfest. So
You do
today
that really well.
I've been practicing.
We are making our way through the Saws. We are now to Saw 6 and Saw 3D, the final chapter. So if you're following along with us, watching these, seventh movie is actually 3D, the final chapter. I had some confusion going in trying to figure out which one to watch. Or if you haven't watched, go watch. We've got spoilers, trigger warnings. Anna.
Yes. So trigger warnings, obviously, entrapment, puppets,
Blood,
gore, social responsibility, corruption,
spectatorship in 3D.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of, for me, what stands out is they stray from the formula. And if you are an avid horror person, we just talked about this in another cast, that you kind of fall into, like, you have these sets of rules in your mind for different horror. Like, these do not align with the first few. And I think we talked about that in our last cast about the Saw films as well. They really tend to stray from the formula. There are a few things particularly that I find to be very aggravating in these movies, and we'll get to that. But definitely, like Margaret said, blood and gore, those are the main things. Also, a lack of responsibility. I think that our character in, like, the final chapter, that's what I'm calling it, pun intended. I know that that was actually a Friday the 13th, but it makes me laugh when I call it that. If it offends you, I apologize. I'm just amusing myself. Anyone listening,
look at the Friday the 13th, even though some of them are horrible. To go back to your point about the formula, you're gonna go see a Friday the 13th, a Freddy, a Mike Myers, Final Destination. You know what you're gonna get, and that's one reason you enjoy it.
Absolutely.
These two, as Anna has already said, they stray from the formula. The plot gets muddy. It gets just... It's like they try to wrap it up, but it's messy.
Yeah, and it's a lot of it is manipulation too. I feel like particularly, you know, in the final chapter one or whatever, there's so much manipulation, and I don't like that. I think that when you're an agent of public trust, and we see that in both films, diving right in, we see that people who are on the police force that you're supposed to trust and be able to take your troubles to and will help you are abusing their power. And then we also see this motivational life experience person who's supposed to be coaching people and helping people with their trauma, and he's just full of garbage.
Yes, would you say that that's part of the problem with these later Saws? That the first ones, we have John Kramer, and he is really making a statement about corruption, about people that are taking advantage of other people, manipulating them. And then we got the public speaker, self-help guy, and Detective Hoffman, who are... Sorry if anybody who's listening or watching like these two characters. I find them, especially Hoffman, I really don't like him. They made him to the point where you're like, there's nothing redeemable about you. You are so unlikable. And that they don't kill him. Like, I feel like in the final chapter, I was like, somebody please, let's make this. Yes, he's gonna die, he's gonna die. And then he gets away. I was like, are you... No.
Yeah. Well, and the irony, just even in his surname, is, you know, Hoffen translates to hope in English. And I'm like, there is no hope with this guy. So, you know, Hoffman is like the hope of man, or man's hope. And I'm like, no. I thought that was clever. I thought it was a really good name pun. But maybe not for that character. I think for me, one of the most distressing things is when he kills Jill.
Yeah.
Because that is not what John Kramer would have wanted at all. Completely goes against everything. And to me, I just found that very distressing. I remember seeing the movie in the theater and being like, oh no. And then when I rewatched it, however many years later, what, like a decade or so later, I was still like, oh no, like this is not happening right now. This cannot
No.
be happening.
No, the only redeeming thing I'm going to say about the final chapter is that we get Dr. Gorman, is that his name?
Oh,
Carrie
always.
back, who's
Mm-hmm.
cleaning up the mess of Hoffman. And then I was like, okay, maybe there is hope that we're getting back to the original Saw formula, because
Yeah.
now we have somebody who survived Jigsaw and believes in Jigsaw's work and isn't some manipulative jerk that's like, oh yeah, I'm going to pretend like I align with you and then just take your information like the guru guy. So these films do touch on how people pretend to align with us only to steal our information and twist it. So it does feel very relevant
Mm-hmm.
for these movies and reflections on society.
Yeah, and well, also that particular one that had the motivational guy and Carrie Elways, um, there was a competition, a reality show on before the film came out. It was called Scream Queens, and the winner played one of Jigsaw's victims, the chick that had her cut her arm off. And I remember I was so excited seeing her in the movie because I was like, I saw her on Scream Queens. So that was kind of the best part. But if we really look at this self-help guy, the traps were set up in a way that if he would have rescued each person when they got to the end, it would have been very easy. And the one thing that bothers me every time I watch that movie, why does he not link the hook through the chain and hoist himself up using his armpits?
Mm-hmm.
I do not understand. We all know that like your breast tissue, whether you're male or female, is not as strong and your pectoral
Mm-hmm.
muscles are small. So logically that's not going to work. I don't understand why he even makes the attempt. Because to me this is not going to work. Like you know as soon as he shoves one in, like that's just going to rip right out.
Yes. I took that as reflecting that he's only seen the immediacy. How can I
Yeah.
get rich? How can this benefit me? And when it comes
Mhm.
to that critical thinking, he's
Yeah.
not thinking, how can I do this? Maybe it's because he's in fight or flight. And so he's like, I have to
Yeah.
hurry. And he's not thinking at all. And you're so spot on that he's not like, okay, if I really want to survive this, which if we go to Jigsaw, Jigsaw is saying, stop,
Mm-hmm.
see what you see,
Yes.
and then think about what to do, because there's something here. And if you stop and think,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be, you're going to get out alive. Like, you need to
Absolutely.
do this. And so I
Yeah.
feel like the movies do, they kept that urgency. People feel that we're just going
Yeah.
to go through and we're going to do this hastily, and we're not going to be
Mm-hmm.
like, what do we need to do? Like the, was it 4 where there's the group of people and they just keep sacrificing people
Yeah.
to like each obstacle, and then like so many, and they're like, oh, we needed to
Yeah.
keep all of us, this would have been easier.
Exactly. And greatness comes in numbers. And
Mhm.
um I think that particularly, the self-help episode of Saw, um it it really is about, to me, this continuation of grief and how many of us are like, you know what, I'm just going to do this myself. I don't need anyone. And we all kind of go through that stage, which is absolutely normal. But in that behavior, it's very difficult to remember, but it's very important to remember if someone else is present and they're in need or they're bringing something to you, it might not be what's right in front of you, but in your journey along the way, they might be able to help you as well. So I think that that's a big kind of grief theme that stood out to me in that particular movie. Um, just because how often do we get so caught up in our own emotional journey or our own state that you convince yourself, I can't do this, or I'm not ever going to feel better, or whatever that is nagging at you. And then you're missing out on an opportunity to grow, to help someone else. I mean, it's very physically illustrated in the film. But when you look at it from that perspective, I think it's a great reminder of how we can learn through our journeys, and then we can also spread our experiences and help other people learn and grow too.
Well, it feels like, right? Like if we look at John Kramer,
Mm-hmm.
that was his whole point. Like, how are we
Yeah.
coming together? How are we learning? How are we being better?
Mm-hmm.
How are we, like, the butterfly effect? Like, I'm
Yeah.
going to be better so that I help people become better,
Mm-hmm.
do better, not
Yeah.
be worse. And I love how you tie that into grief, and that we separate, and
Yeah.
we don't live in a society where grief is communal
Right.
anymore. We could go to the scene like in Midsummer, right, where Danny starts to wail and
Mm-hmm.
all the women around her start to do that. Centuries ago, maybe 100 years ago, and Anna and I both studied this, grief was communal. If I
Mm-hmm.
was dying, people were coming in and out, there were children playing, I was still engaging if I could. Then when somebody died, communities came together, and that is missing
Mm-hmm.
now. So we're missing this communal grief, which is, I think it's disheartening. And I hope that, I'm all for bringing it back. Like, how do we
Mm-hmm.
mourn
Yes.
together? Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, especially this day and age when so many people are grieving for so many different things. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that really John Kramer is an amazing instrumental griever because he is grieving for the life he knows he's going to lose. But in doing so, not only is he taking physical action, he's making meaning out of what he has left. And um, although I wouldn't advise maybe following his footsteps, I think that that's important too. If you're listening to this and you or someone you know, is ill and death is approaching, you still are able to figure out a way to leave a legacy behind that will give you a sense of purpose now and also meaning for your loved ones, for your friends, even for people that you've never even met. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yes. And I also love how you touch on legacy building. Like, that's what John Kramer's doing. He is
Mm-hmm.
mindful of what is his legacy, what is he leaving behind. And so often people get so caught up in, I have to go, 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 I have to be part of grind culture, that they forget, how am I making the world a better place? What am I leaving behind for future generations?
Mm-hmm. And then we get into Jigsaw. And I feel like this particular film, so it's either Saw 3D or Jigsaw. It was panned differently in advertisement. I saw it in the theater and I loved it because it was 3D. It was great. I just thought that how it was paired was fun. Also love that a lot of it takes place on a farm. Um, that made me happy. It actually came out the year that my grandmother had died. So I spent a lot of time on the farm as a kid, just having that connection. Even if it was to a Saw movie, made me feel good. So it's probably one of my favorite movies because of those reasons. And also, I feel like the decade apart scenario speaks to human behavior in a way that is very well illustrated. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if it's like a horror, drama, comedy, any type of film genre. It's really hard to find a film that is able to do that.
Yes. Well, these movies span
Yeah.
decades at this
Oh,
point.
yeah, absolutely. But I love that, there's, I want to say like test group A, and then like a decade later, there's test group B, and they're the same character archetypes
Mm-hmm.
that we have, right? So three in the second test are the same character types as the first test, and they behave in the same way. And I just find that so intriguing. Um, because, everyone wants to be seen as a good person. When something bad happens or we do something that negatively impacts someone else, it's easy to change the narrative. And that's
Mm-hmm.
part of a coping strategy as well, right? So, knowing that you're responsible for something negative in someone else's life, how do you cope with that? What type of
Yes.
self talk are you using? How are you proceeding in your life? How do you atone? Do you even atone? These are questions that I think are really valid when we look at some of the characters in that particular movie.
Yes. And if you look across what we've watched so far of the Saws up to 3D7, like the ones that don't atone, or we go back to 4, the guy who is like, we see him going through as he's forgiving people for the
Mhm.
loss of his son. So then he
Mhm.
sees these people he's been so angry at, and he's like, well, I don't want you to die. Like, that's not gonna
Yeah.
help. And so he tries to save them. And then we see Hoffman, who could care less about human life, who could care less about atoning. We could even say that about our guru. The person he cares
Yeah.
about is his
Himself.
wife. That's who he wants to save.
Right. And I do feel like his wife is his prize. So at the end of the day, he just really only cares about himself. At least that's my perspective. And I think that that shows because she perishes because he
Mm-hmm.
couldn't figure out what to do. Or
Yes. Or if
maybe he
we
didn't
go to
want,
6, right?
yeah.
The insurance guy. And then
Mhm.
that decision where it's like, well, what do we do in this situation? And I believe, right, it's the guy who died of cancer who the insurance president let die, where he's like,
Mhm.
no, you can die because you
Yeah.
took my dad from me.
Yeah. And it's just a lot of scenarios of how people relate. And you're right about like Hoffman, and if we really look at him more closely, his sister's murder is what kind of, I feel like, started this whole way of thinking. Something has happened in his grief journey and his trauma response to create this behavior. And how many times do we see someone who experiences a traumatic event or loss, and at some point they are just F the world, F everybody? And it is immensely difficult to see someone in that state and also difficult to be in that state.
Yes, and again, you touch on like Hoffman, his inability to forgive, and that he's gets so locked into his grief and that anger and the inability then to move through and create meaning, where we see other characters in their grief are creating meaning and they're able to forgive, which is part of it. And to our listeners, my 100-pound boxer bulldog is making lots of noise in the background if you can hear him. So I apologize for the snorting that is
He's just
happening.
giving his opinion too on Hoffman. He's like,
Well, his nickname is Monster. That we do call
yeah,
him that. We are, it is a
oh,
horror podcast.
exactly. And plus, like, hey, we're fur baby lovers, and that's a darn good thing. And actually, any of our characters that have been in these Saw movies that are working through their grief journeys, I
Mm-hmm.
think that if they had a pet, it would probably be beneficial for them because animals love us. They're always
Mm-hmm.
there for us. Taking a walk, spending 10 to 15 minutes a day cuddling with your fur baby
Yes.
has proven medical benefits. So I'm actually really glad that the little fella made himself known because what a great thing to talk about too is, the movie would have never existed, but if John Kramer would have gotten a cat, you know, maybe that would have added some pleasure to his end of life as well.
A cat. He definitely seems like a cat person.
Yeah, I feel like he would lose patience with a puppy just because of the training involved. But I feel like if he
Mm-hmm.
had like a 3 or 4 year old cat that was slightly
Yeah.
overweight, like that would be perfect for him because he could monitor its diet, help it get in shape, but also know like the cat could take care of itself too.
When we're digressing a
Mm-hmm.
bit here, and I see an animal, I'm like, oh my gosh, is this animal gonna die? Is this animal here for the plot to be hurt?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I am also.
Yeah.
I think that characters who have pets too, they're more easy to connect with. So if you go into a film and you're like, oh, that person has a golden retriever, I'm connected to them. They have to be the protagonist, and then they're dead. It's much more
Mm-hmm.
distressing. It's kind of almost like a play on, you know, Janet Leigh's character in Psycho. You get so emotionally
Mm-hmm.
attached, and then they're dead, and it's like, what? No, bye.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Oh, so viewers, listeners, if you don't know, Does the Dog Die? Excellent website so that you can figure out if an animal does die. And I have stopped movies. I started watching, I believe it was a Spanish film. It was really good. A cult. And then I kept noticing like his dog, like he had to feed his dog. I'm like, and then I read on Does the Dog Die? And they're like, oh no, like it's a horrible scene coming up. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not even gonna watch this movie anymore because I don't want to see somebody, because people are like, it was over the top. And horror fans, I think a lot,
Yeah.
or even not horror fans, you'll know when somebody goes, you're like, you just killed that animal in that way to be brutal. Like
Mm-hmm.
Signs, the animal death and that fits the plot, and it's done in a way that you're like, this sucks,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm okay with it. I didn't have to see it, right? The dog's upset, we see the children upset, and then next thing we see is the dog has like a barbecue fork in it.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and even like movies like Drag Me to Hell, like the kitten, you don't see it, but you
Mhm.
know that like she looks at it, and then the next scene she's burying it, like you know. And I
Yes.
think that that's a much better scenario than
Yeah,
showing.
like Pet Cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We know the cat gets hit.
Mm-hmm.
We don't
Yeah.
have to see all the gratuitous violence with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and a lot of the time too, I can tell you, spending a lot of time in a rural area as a kid, if a critter gets hit on the road, I know this is going to sound real country when I say it, but it doesn't usually look like it looks on TV. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
just not, yeah. If you've had to see it in real life, you don't want to have to see it on the big screen. Um,
Yes.
there,
So here
but
we have the Saw movies with
yeah,
lots of violence against humans.
which is fine. Um, save the animals. So I do have to ask, what is your favorite setup in these two movies? Like of the two, is there
Ooh.
a scene that sticks out to you?
Oh, that's a great question. I like when the skinheads die in
Mm-hmm.
3D.
Me
That's
too.
very, huh?
Yeah, it's the good.
Yeah, it's like you deserve this.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. You?
I actually so the the motivational speaker guy, when there's the one where he has to do the shoulder press,
Hmm.
the thing that I like about that is if he would have helped the others along the way, there would have been enough people to lift.
Yes, as you go
I,
back to community,
yeah.
and if we have community, then we are supported and we get
Mhm.
help. And the Saw movies really do speak
Yes.
to individuality,
Mhm.
community, and how we find that. community, because John Kramer is trying to build a community, it feels like, or the people that will carry on his legacy, and all these people that just miss the point because they're so caught in individualism. And we see that in the beginning of 3D, right? We've got these two guys and the girlfriend's up top, and they're like, oh, you're with my girl. Oh, you're with my girl. And then they come together. They're like, wait, what?
Wait a minute. Yeah.
Let her die.
You know, the other thing too is the human reaction in that one. How many people are just standing there trying to figure out what's going on, and how many people are actually trying to help. And that standout scene too. But yeah, I think the shoulder press, because literally, if you help someone else, you never know if in the future they might be able to help you bear the weight of a load.
Yes. Ooh, I love that. Yes. Who do you most relate to?
Oh God. So I think, oh, that's a hard one for
I know these movies,
really,
sadly. Yeah.
Yeah, probably Jill. Like, I'm just trying to do my best to survive and get through all this. And, you know, I think that she knew John as one person, and finding out these things about her partner was devastating. Him losing the child was devastating. Him dying was devastating. All of these things just keep happening. And it's very tumultuous, yet somehow she keeps going on, and she's really like going through some wild things after his death. And, you know, she perseveres the best way she can. I think if Hoffman were not in the scenario, she'd probably still be around in the movies. But definitely, I'm going to say Jill. What about you?
Ooh, yeah, there's so many unlikable people.
I know.
I'm gonna go with Billy, right? Billy the puppet.
I love Billy.
I'm just like, hey, how are you? You want to be part of my community?
Yeah. Like, hey, how's
sometimes I bring you some bad news.
Check out my new tricycle. By the way, listen to this tape.
Yes.
Let me know what you think.
Yeah.
I laughs though. I love it when he's like, the best.
I almost said the tricycle.
Yeah, right. Oh my goodness. Yeah, they definitely were some very unlikable groupings in these movies, for sure.
All right. So, listeners, viewers, what did you think of these two Saw movies as you are joining us? What's your favorite Saw movie? Have we gotten to your favorite Saw movie? Because we've got 3 left to go, right? 8, 9, 10?
Yeah.
Oh, Spirals.
Spiral.
I don't know.
Well,
so,
I think,
yeah.
Yeah. Spiral's kind of its own thing, but I think we'll definitely still talk about it because it's within the Saw family.
It's part of
Yeah. So it's definitely part of the Saw grouping. And hey, if you enjoy that some of these movies stray from the original formula and maybe we're not picking up on something that always stands out to you, please share it with us. Please let us know your thoughts. And if you have any thoughts about John Kramer or how these films relate to grief and loss, we would love to know what you think as well. And if there are any other series films that we haven't covered, we are definitely open to talking about them. So please let us know.
We're probably on our way to work through it. Side note, I just looked it up. Jigsaw is 8, Spirals is 9, and then we have 10. So
get ready because they're coming.
Yes.
Yes. And in the meantime, make sure you drink your Bruja Brew, eat your coffin cookies, and howl at the moon. And don't forget,
like, subscribe, follow, comment. Thanks for listening and watching.
Until next time.
Bye.